If you see a red bus every night at 3:33 a.m., don't get on it. Every town has its secrets. Ours has something worse, a warning. You may hear it whispered by old security guards, gas station clerks on night shifts, or late-night taxi drivers who refuse to pass by Maple Street after 3 a.m. It's always the same: if you see a red bus at 3:33 a.m., don't get on it. They don't say why. They don't explain. They just look at you like they've already seen you vanish. The story goes back decades. People who boarded the bus were never seen again. There are photos, grainy, old, always taken from far away. A red blur under a flickering streetlight. A shape in the mist. No license plate. No driver. No passengers. There was a woman once. Her name was Lena. A nurse who worked the overnight shift at the county hospital. One morning she didn't clock out. They found her phone and purse in her locker, untouched. But a traffic camera caught a blurry image from the corner near her bus stop. A red vehicle idling there for 47 seconds. Then gone. No tire marks. No sound. Just gone. Her shift ended at 3:30 a.m. Then there was Jonah, a high school senior. He told friends online he was going to get on the red bus for the thrill of it. The last message he sent, it just pulled up. Doors opening. LOL if I vanish. That was 4 years ago. His profile is still active, but he never posted again. You think it's an urban legend. Just another creepypasta to scare kids. That's what I thought too. But last week I saw it. Crimson red. Perfectly still. Door half open. I didn't believe it either. Until the bus came for me. Ravi had lived in the town of Darnley his whole life, but he never quite felt like he belonged. At 22, most of his friends had either moved out or settled into lives that looked permanent. Not Ravi. He was stuck. Stuck in the same small college, stuck with the same questions about his future, stuck in a body that refused to sleep when the world did. Insomnia wasn't new to him, it was a lifelong companion. He'd spent countless nights lying awake, watching the shadows in his room shift as headlights passed by, listening to the hum of old street lamps and the occasional bark of a stray dog. Darnley wasn't the kind of town you'd see in a movie. It didn't have a dark history or a haunted mansion. It wasn't cursed or cursed looking. It was plain. Rows of identical houses. A single main street with a few diners, a bookstore, a closed-down theater. But there was something about the night here that Ravi couldn't explain. The stillness felt too complete, like the town held its breath after midnight. Even crickets seemed hesitant to break the silence. He often wandered at night not because he wanted to, but because he had no choice. His legs moved when his mind wouldn't stop. He knew all the alleys, all the shortcuts between residential streets, all the spots where the streetlights flickered as if unsure whether to stay on. In the early hours the town changed. It became a ghost of itself, familiar buildings warped in moonlight, empty sidewalks stretching into nothing. Darnley slept, but Ravi wandered. It was on one of those nights, while sitting at the 24-hour convenience store sipping stale coffee, that he heard the phrase for the first time. "You ever hear about the 3:33 bus?" the clerk asked, breaking the silence as he stocked candy bars. Ravi looked up, curious. The man didn't meet his eyes. He just kept talking like it wasn't even a conversation. "They say it shows up when you're about to make a big choice. Like the universe giving you a way out, or a way in." Ravi thought it was a joke. Just small talk. But that wasn't the last time he heard it. The next night, he was walking past the local security booth near the closed school building. The old man who sat there most nights, a retired cop everyone called Uncle Saeed, waved him over. "You keep walking around like that, boy, you're gonna catch its attention," he muttered. "What?" Ravi laughed. "That damn red bus. You don't want it stopping for you. If you see it at 3:33, you keep walking. Don't look inside. Don't even blink at it." The way he said it, with trembling hands and eyes that had clearly seen more than they wanted to, left Ravi uneasy. He tried to laugh it off again, but it stuck with him. Over the next few weeks, more fragments of the story came his way. A janitor at the college who spoke in riddles. A barista who insisted her cousin disappeared after seeing a strange red vehicle. Even online message boards had passing mentions of a red bus that only certain people could see. People on the edge. People with unresolved choices. It was as if the legend followed Ravi through town, whispered just loud enough to reach his ears but never clear enough to explain. And always, the same warning: it comes at 3:33. And only when you're ready to change your life. But Ravi wasn't trying to change his life. Was he? He wasn't planning anything drastic. At least, not consciously. But he had been thinking about quitting college. About leaving town. About whether anything he did really mattered. His thoughts had grown darker lately, heavier. And maybe, just maybe, the bus had noticed. It was a Tuesday, or maybe a Wednesday. The nights had begun to blur together for Ravi, each one stitched to the next with sleepless hours and the soft buzz of streetlights. That particular night, though, something felt different. He couldn't name it. A kind of pressure hung in the air, like the world was holding something back. He left his apartment just after 3 a.m., hoodie pulled over his head, earbuds in but playing nothing. Just something to keep the silence out. But that night there was no silence. Or rather, there was too much of it. The town was quieter than usual. Not peaceful, unnaturally quiet. No wind, no insects, no distant cars. Just a low hum, like the air itself was trembling. He walked aimlessly, letting his feet guide him through the familiar grid of dark streets. By instinct, he turned onto Hawthorne Avenue, a stretch of road lined with trees that clawed the sky like black fingers. That's when he saw it. At the end of the street, parked beneath a broken streetlight, was the bus. It was unmistakable. Blood red. Perfectly polished. Not a single speck of dust or dirt on it, despite the cracked asphalt and overgrown curbs. It looked brand new but somehow old, like it didn't belong to any decade or model he could name. The streetlight above it flickered, stuttering like a dying heartbeat. And the bus just waited. Ravi stopped walking. The digital clock on the corner pharmacy flicked to 3:33 a.m. He took a step closer. The bus didn't move. Another step. Still nothing. The headlights were off, but there was a glow, soft, red, as if it was breathing light. It cast long shadows that bent the wrong way. The windows were too dark to see inside, and there was no number or logo. Just one word printed in dim gold letters across the top where a destination would be: home. Ravi's chest tightened. He scanned for a driver but saw no one. The mirrors reflected nothing. The interior was pitch black, like the bus was a hollow shell. He stepped closer. Close enough to smell something faint and strange, ozone like after a lightning strike, and something sweet beneath it like rotting flowers. The door was closed. He took out his phone to take a picture, but the screen was dead. Not off, dead. He tried the power button. Nothing. It had been at 40% just minutes ago. He reached the curb. And then it happened. The bus's engine roared to life, breaking the silence with a deep, unnatural growl. Not like a machine starting up, like something waking up. Ravi stumbled back, heart racing. The headlights stayed off, but the glow brightened, pulsing once, twice, like a heartbeat. Then, with a hiss of hydraulics, the door opened. He froze. Inside, the blackness seemed to lean toward him as if it wanted to pull him in. The steps looked wet. Slick. Wrong. And from deep within he thought he saw something move, a shadow shifting behind shadow. His legs responded before his brain did. He ran. He didn't look back. He didn't stop. Not until he reached the intersection at the end of the block. There he turned, panting, knees shaking. The bus was gone. No engine. No glow. Just empty street and broken light. He looked at his phone again. The screen blinked back on, time displayed as 3:35 a.m. Battery back to 39%. He walked home in a daze, unsure if it had been real. A hallucination. A dream. But as he stepped through his front door and locked it behind him, he realized his ears were ringing. Not from the engine. Not from his breathing. It was the sound of the door opening. And it was still echoing. Soft. Inviting. Waiting. Ravi couldn't sleep even if he tried, not after that night. The image of the red bus burned in his brain, sharper and more vivid than any dream or nightmare. He kept hearing the hiss of the doors opening, the low thrum of the engine, the unnatural silence that wrapped around everything. Every time he closed his eyes, it was there. Waiting. He didn't tell anyone at first. Who would believe him? Instead he started digging. It began harmlessly, typing "Red Bus 3:33 a.m. into his browser. At first, nothing useful came up. Just links to urban legend websites, spooky Reddit posts, and generic ghost stories. But as he went deeper, thread by thread, page by page, he started finding patterns. Scattered across old forums, mostly abandoned, were posts that sounded eerily familiar. One was from a guy in Ohio who claimed he saw a red bus parked outside his apartment complex at 3:33 a.m. Another from a girl in rural India who described waking up to the sound of a bus idling outside her window. They all described the same things. No driver, an overwhelming glow, a feeling of being watched. Most ended abruptly, no follow-up posts, no final comments. Just silence. A few survivors, if that's what they were, warned others never to approach it. One anonymous poster wrote, "Don't get on. My brother did. That was 6 years ago. We filed a missing person report. Cops said there was no record of a bus in the area. Just tracks that led nowhere. Ravi screenshotted everything. Created folders. Made notes. He started marking locations on a map, drawing circles, trying to find patterns. The sightings spanned decades, even continents. But there was always one thing in common. The person who saw the bus was always going through something: grief, loss, depression, desperation. It was as if the bus could smell sadness. Or perhaps decision. He brought it up, carefully, with a janitor named Malik who worked the night shift at Ravi's college. Malik was the kind of man who always had a story to tell if you gave him time. One night, while Ravi was hanging back near the library at 2:30 a.m., he offered him a coffee and asked, "You ever hear of a red bus around here?" Malik went quiet. "Why you asking about that?" he said slowly, eyes narrowing. "I saw it," Ravi said. "I think, just once. 2 nights ago." Malik sat down beside him, his voice lower than before. "My cousin Tariq, he was a bit older than me. We used to sneak out at night, explore the city, talk about leaving everything behind. One night he called me. Said he saw a weird red bus down on Union Street. He was laughing, said it looked haunted or something. Told me he was gonna get on just to see where it went." Ravi listened, breath caught. "He never came back," Malik said. "Cops thought he ran off. But he wasn't like that. He had plans. He was gonna get married the next year. He had a job lined up in Karachi. Just disappeared." "Did you tell anyone about the bus?" Ravi asked. Malik shook his head. "They'd think I'm crazy. Maybe I am." From that moment on, Ravi was hooked. He stopped trying to sleep. He stopped going to class. His professors emailed. His friends called. He ignored them. Every night he walked the streets. Not just his neighborhood, he covered miles. Park Road, Maple Lane, the riverfront, the hills near the old quarry. Every night, from 3 to 4 a.m., he walked with eyes wide open, heart pounding, waiting for a glimpse of red. He set alarms. Timers. Set up motion sensors with his phone camera. Sat on rooftops. Drank more caffeine than any human should. Kept a journal. Logged temperature, wind speed, humidity, anything that might be connected. And still nothing. But he knew it wasn't gone. It was watching. Waiting. And something inside him, something darker, deeper, wanted to see it again. He didn't admit it aloud, not even to himself. But when he walked under the dead sky at 3:32, hoping, praying to see the bus again, he wasn't just chasing a mystery. He was chasing a way out. One night, long after his obsession had taken over and the world outside his window had faded into a background hum, Ravi found something different. He was scrolling through an archived subforum of paranormal threads on Reddit, one that hadn't seen activity in years. The thread was buried, nearly inaccessible without specific search terms. The title caught his eye instantly. Rules for surviving the red bus. Read or regret. It wasn't like the other posts. This one was detailed, composed, and oddly calm, written like a set of instructions from someone who had been through it and lived to tell the tale. But there was something cold in the tone, like the writer wasn't sure if they should be helping others or if they were breaking some cosmic law by sharing. The post began plainly. "If you're reading this, chances are you've seen it already. The red bus. 3:33 a.m. You know the sound. You know the feeling. You know it's real. If you haven't boarded it yet, good. That means you still have a choice. These rules are for you. Follow them exactly." Then came the list. 1. Never board if the destination sign says home. That word isn't what you think it means. It's not your house. It's not your family. It's where you'll end up if you never come back. 2. Never speak to the conductor. You won't want to. You'll think it's rude not to. He might ask you questions. You might feel compelled to answer. Don't. The moment you speak, you become part of the route. 3. Never sit in the back row. Those seats are reserved. You won't see who or what for a few stops. But once they join you, it's already too late. 4. If someone gets on with you, close your eyes. It won't be a person. It'll look like one. It'll even smell familiar, sound familiar. But it's not. Don't let it see you looking. 5. Don't take anything with you that belonged to someone dead. Not their ring, not their photo, not their favorite jacket. These items become invitations. You don't want them invited. The post ended with a chilling note. Break 1 rule and you may still wake up. Break 2 and the bus won't stop for you again, because it knows you're staying. I broke a rule. I'm writing this from inside the bus. There were no comments. The post was locked. Ravi tried finding the user's profile, but it had been deleted, or maybe never existed in the first place. He scrolled through his browser history, clicked back, reloaded the page. The post was gone. He stared at his screen, unsure if he had imagined it. But the words were etched in his mind now. The rules, they felt true. More real than anything he'd read before. And they scared him. Not because of what they warned against, but because they seemed so specifically for him. The mention of home hit hardest. When he had seen the bus the first time, that was the word on the sign. Home. He hadn't even thought twice about it then. Now he couldn't stop thinking about what would have happened if he'd stepped on. Ravi copied the rules into his notebook, memorized them, recited them like a prayer. He didn't know when he'd see the bus again, but deep down he knew it would come back. And when it did, he'd have a choice to make. And this time he didn't want to make the wrong one. It happened on a night Ravi couldn't take it anymore. Days had blurred into nights, and nights into something else entirely. Time no longer moved in a straight line. It twisted. It looped. It clawed at him. That night the town felt heavier. The air was damp even though it hadn't rained, and everything seemed muted, like sound itself was being swallowed by the dark. He walked with no plan, no route, just the kind of mechanical movement that came when sleep had long given up on him. And then he heard it. The low growl of the engine, not loud but dense, like thunder trapped in a metal box. His pulse quickened. He followed the sound, each step slow and deliberate, drawn toward it like a magnet he couldn't resist. He turned the corner onto Birch Street, and there it was. The red bus sat still in the middle of the road, bathed in that same eerie crimson glow that had haunted his dreams. The digital sign above the windshield flickered once, then held steady. End of the line. There was no wind, but his hoodie billowed slightly as if the night had exhaled. Ravi stepped toward the open doors. He could hear nothing from inside. No shuffling, no breathing, not even the faint hiss of air conditioning. Just silence, thick and watching. He hesitated for a long moment, heart pounding, knees threatening to fold beneath him. Then he stepped onto the first stair. The smell hit him first, cold metal, dust, and something sweeter like candle wax that had burned too long. He climbed the steps slowly, gripping the railing without thinking. His fingers came away sticky. He wiped them on his jeans and kept moving. The driver sat in the front seat, unmoving. His uniform was crisp and old-fashioned, like something from the 1940s. A cap shadowed his face, but it was more than just darkness. It was empty. There was nothing there. No eyes, no mouth, no skin. Just a swirling black void, as if someone had scooped out the inside of his head. Ravi's stomach turned. The driver didn't move, didn't acknowledge him, but Ravi remembered the second rule. Never speak to the conductor. So he said nothing. Just nodded barely. He walked down the narrow aisle and chose a seat in the middle, not too close to the front, not near the back. The bus had about 20 seats, and they were all covered in faded red upholstery. A few looked damp. One had something smeared across it like dried mud, or something darker. Ravi sat down. Kept his hands on his lap. Didn't touch the windows, didn't press the button, didn't look into the mirrors. The silence was deafening. Every breath he took sounded too loud. His heartbeat echoed in his skull. The bus jolted forward. No sound from the engine. Just movement, smooth and unnatural, like the world was moving around the bus, not the other way around. The windows showed nothing but blur. No houses, no streets, no lights. Just darkness smeared with streaks of crimson and gray. He remembered the rules. Focused on his breathing. Counted seconds. Tried to stay calm. Then the bus stopped. The doors hissed open with that awful, slow exhale. Someone climbed aboard. Ravi didn't turn around, but he could hear the footsteps. Heavy. Uneven. Like something dragging a leg. A few seconds passed. Then the sound of breathing, wet and labored. He didn't move. He didn't need to turn around. He knew who it was. The janitor. Malik. Except it wasn't him. Or not exactly. Something about the presence was wrong. The footsteps were too loud, the weight too much for one person. And the breathing, it didn't come from just one mouth. It was layered. Multiplied. A new scent filled the bus. Burnt paper, meat, and damp earth. The seat beside Ravi creaked. He wanted to look. God, he wanted to look. But he remembered the rule: if someone gets on with you, close your eyes. He clenched them shut. Art. Something shifted beside him. Not a person. A mass. Breathing. The bus began to move again. He stayed still. Eyes closed. Jaw tight. Then something touched his hand. It wasn't fingers. It was soft, wet, and wrong. Like someone had dipped a rag in lukewarm jelly and dragged it across his skin. He flinched but didn't scream. Didn't open his eyes. The thing moved again. Settled beside him. Time stretched. He didn't know how long he sat there. Minutes? Hours? Years? Eventually the bus slowed. Stopped. The door opened. The pressure beside him lifted. The seat creaked again. The air cleared. He waited. Counted to 100. Then, slowly, carefully he opened his eyes. The bus was empty again. No passengers. No janitor. No wet hand. Only the faceless driver, still motionless. And the glowing sign above the window, flickering to a new word. Decision. The moment Ravi opened his eyes again, the world outside the bus had changed. Where the town once existed, streets, buildings, trees, even stars, there was now only distortion. The windows showed roads that bent like melted rubber, spiraling upward and downward into nothing. Black rivers flowed beside cracked sidewalks, and upside-down traffic lights blinked in colors Ravi couldn't name. Buildings flickered in and out of existence, their walls sagging like soggy paper, their insides hollowed out by something long gone. He pressed his forehead lightly against the window, trying to find something, anything, familiar. But there was no reference point anymore. No Darnley. No Earth. No time. He pulled out his phone, mostly out of habit. The screen lit up, 3:33 a.m. Battery, 79%. No signal. He swiped up. No apps worked. He powered it off. Powered it on. Still 3:33 a.m. Battery, 79%. Time wasn't moving here. Or maybe it didn't matter. The bus rocked gently as it moved forward. Not across land, but through something thicker, heavier than mere space. Ravi leaned back, gripping the armrests. He dared a glance toward the front. The driver remained still, his face still a void beneath the cap. Then, from the edge of his vision, he saw her. A woman in a red dress, seated near the front, facing the aisle. She hadn't been there before. Her head was tilted downward, long black hair covering her face. A soft sound escaped her, a stifled sob. She cried without moving, without shaking. Just a slow, constant leaking of sorrow into the air. Ravi looked away, afraid to violate another rule. But her weeping crawled into his ears and refused to leave. The bus kept moving. Outside, they passed a wide, black platform labeled in faded gold. The endless station. Ravi blinked and it was gone. In its place, a narrow dirt road lined with bones, literal bones. The sign above read, Road of Teeth. He turned away from the window. Whispers began behind him. Faint at first like wind through leaves, then clearer. He doesn't belong. He's still deciding. He's tasted the edge. The voices weren't human, but they weren't inhuman either. They existed in that in-between space, where a voice might belong to someone you lost in a dream. Ravi gritted his teeth, shut his eyes, and counted backward from 10. Then the lights in the bus flickered and everything went quiet. They entered a tunnel, its interior lined with mirrors. Except the mirrors didn't reflect Ravi. Or the bus. They reflected possibilities. He saw versions of himself, smiling, laughing, screaming. One version looked older, standing over a grave. Another wore a wedding ring. Another held a bloodied knife. Each reflection held its own reality, playing out in fast forward. He turned away, but the mirrors followed. The tunnel stretched on forever. And just when he thought he couldn't take another moment, the bus stopped. The lights dimmed. The driver turned. And for the first time he spoke. "Choose," the conductor said, voice echoing like it came from every direction at once. "Go home, or go deeper." The words lingered in the air like smoke. Ravi sat frozen, unsure if the driver had truly spoken or if the bus itself had. Still, the message was clear. The door slid open with its now familiar hiss. A white light spilled in, gentle, warm, pulling at something inside him. But Ravi didn't move. What did home mean here? Was it really his apartment in Darnley, his real bed, a return to normal? Or was it just another illusion, like the word he'd seen the first night? He thought about everything. About the janitor, about the woman in the red dress. About the reflections in the mirror tunnel. And somewhere deep inside he knew this was a test. One wrong move and he'd never see home again. He turned slowly to face the conductor. What's deeper? No answer. The bus remained still. But the mirrors outside the tunnel had vanished, and in their place stood a massive station. A clock above the platform ticked backwards. A crowd gathered on the platform, people with Ravi's face. Older, younger, thinner, stronger. Some wept. Some smiled. Some stared straight at him. This was the stop between decisions. He stood up, legs trembling. Took one breath. Then another. "I want to go deeper," he said. The driver nodded once, slowly. The door shut. The bus groaned and moved forward again, this time into silence. He was going where few had gone before. But he needed to know what the bus really was. The next station was not marked. The bus rolled to a stop at the edge of a vast plain. Above, the sky churned like liquid mercury. In front of him, the land was dotted with black pillars, each inscribed with a name. Ravi stepped off. The ground pulsed under his feet, soft, almost alive. As he walked, he realized every pillar bore a face. Some he recognized, some he didn't. All of them wore the same expression, sorrow mixed with peace. And then it clicked. The bus wasn't a vehicle. It was a ferry. A collector. Not of souls exactly, but of decisions. Of people who had reached the edge of something irreversible. Those ready to give up, to vanish, to be erased not by death but by absence. The slow fading of someone who no longer fights to be seen. Ravi stopped before a pillar that bore his face. He saw his eyes, red from tears, lips curled in exhaustion. The version of him that had almost taken pills 2 weeks ago. The one who'd written the note, deleted it, then stayed awake for 36 hours in silence. That Ravi had been waiting for the bus. And now he understood. The red bus only comes for those who have almost given up. Those so close to the line that a gentle nudge could carry them away forever. He dropped to his knees. Not in defeat, but in understanding. He wasn't just a passenger. He was a candidate. Ravi stood slowly, his knees weak but steady. The air thickened, pressing against his chest. The pillars faded. The world tilted. He turned toward the bus, now silent and empty. And yet, it wasn't. Behind him, in the seats, something stirred. Shapes. Whispers. Old regrets, half-formed faces. They were watching him, waiting for him to sit again. But Ravi saw something else. A narrow red-lit panel near the back door. Emergency exit. He made his way down the aisle. The closer he got, the heavier the air became. Like the bus was trying to hold him in place. He reached the handle. A whisper tickled his ear. Turn around. But he didn't. He remembered another rule he'd read, one not written in the post but whispered in a forum reply. To escape the red bus, you must walk backward and never look at the passengers. He yanked the door open. Cold air rushed in. The smell of earth, rain, and hope. He stepped out and walked backward. Step after trembling step. The whispers grew louder. The shapes leaned closer. He could feel them. But he didn't look. And then, a voice behind him. Come. We'll come again when you're ready. The wind stopped. The world went black. Ravi woke up in his bed, gasping. Sweat clung to his body. His room looked the same, books scattered on the desk, hoodie draped over the chair, phone charging. He rolled over and looked at the clock. 3:32 a.m. Not a second more. He sat up, touched the floor. Real. Everything was real. He lived. In the days that followed, something changed. The insomnia didn't leave entirely, but it softened. The thoughts that once circled like vultures drifted away. He started talking to people again. Ate full meals. Laughed once or twice. He never told anyone about the bus. But at night, he always made sure his curtains were drawn, his door locked, and his alarm set. Then one night, weeks later, he noticed something. A red glow outside the window. He looked at the clock. 3:33 a.m. His breath caught in his throat. The sound of a distant engine murmured beyond the trees. He stood up, walked to the window, then stopped. He reached out, grabbed the curtains, and closed them, softly, firmly. He climbed back into bed. Not tonight. Not again.